Good evening. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, the company which replaced failed insurance company Clico is open and ready for business. This declaration from Finance Minister Chris Sinclair during a tour of the building which Resolution Life Assurance Company Limited now occupies. Sharika Griffith has more.
Finance Minister Chris Sinclair says the insurance market is a big one, which is at the moment providing limited options to customers. However, since obtaining its license to operate fully as an insurance company and underwriting business, the minister believes Resolution Life can fill that gap.
The team is working on defining out and differentiating the types of product that they can safely put in the market to address the demands and concerns of members of the public. So it's a multifaceted bit of work. This is an insurance company that is open for business.
The minister was speaking at a press conference after extensively touring the 2 floors which ResLife occupies in the Worthing Corporate Centre. The company was created to take over the Barbados-based life insurance policies formerly held by the now-defunct insurance company Clico. After a decade-long wait, he says policyholders have begun to receive payments.
Finally, payments are being made. We are coming good with our promise to make our policyholders whole again. It has been a long way and at some sufferance or much sufferance in some instances. Of course, we do all apologize for the length of time that has taken, but some of those matters were beyond our immediate control.
The minister says there's no set date for the completion of payment of outstanding claims, as there are several different types of policies to consider. He, however, expressed confidence that what happened with Clico will not happen again.
With good regulation, with companies that are operating appropriately, and with good vigilance of the public, because the public still has a responsibility to exercise vigilance outside of the regulatory authorities on companies that operate in Barbados and the Caribbean. I believe that a situation similar to what would have occurred with Clico ought not to be repeated.
In 2015, the value of outstanding claims stood at $40 million. To date, the company has paid out approximately $800,000 to policyholders. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks, Sharika. And in the meantime, the Finance Minister says the government of Barbados has not forgotten about Clico policyholders from the oecs. He says the restructuring proposal put forward by the judicial manager was for the entire colonial portfolio and therefore applies to the other countries as well. And he hopes that the progress made so far in Barbados will encourage other countries to get on board.
We believe that when they see what is happening here and how this has unfolded, and the fact that policyholders are beginning to see the benefit of that restructuring exercise, we hope and we encourage them to get on board so we can get that second phase of the restructuring completed, so that those persons throughout the islands, particularly in the oecs, who would have invested in Clico, can have a successful resolution as well.
Minister Sinclair says, however, the oecs is free to accept the proposal as is or make adjustments as they see fit.
Through the currency union, there have to be discussions with all the parties involved. St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica, and so forth, and so on, Grenada, where together they have to make a decision. Is this proposal which has been put to the court, which we have now operationalized in Barbados as an example of what can happen, is this what they want, or perhaps there's something else?
The Blackburn and Gollop School is once again closed due to sewage affecting the Christchurch institution. CBC News understands that this morning, teachers expressed their dissatisfaction over conditions at the school, which was recently reopened after being closed for removal of the sewage. The school was officially closed around 11:45 this morning. Now, while visiting the Staple Grove institution, our news team spoke with the concerned parent, Nadia Adams, who has a 10- and 8-year-old attending the school.
The school was closed for a week, then it was cleaned, and then it was reopened, but the problem wasn't dealt with. And at the end of the day, the entities that are responsible for Blackman Garlic Primary School, i.e. the Ministry of Education, needs to deal with the situation. Children are being forced to endure discomfort, pain, have to go to the doctor. Some children can't come back to school until this coverage problem is solved. Teachers, coverage is going in their eyes, it's on their skin, they're closing classroom windows in an effort to try to manage the situation.
Many Barbadians may be suffering with various allergies, but without a proper understanding of the symptoms, they may be suffering in ignorance. During the Barbados Drug Service's first lecture of the year, head of the Allergy, Asthma and Immunology Services at the Emik Medical Center in Israel, Menasham Rotem, engaged Barbadians in a discussion themed, "Is it truly an allergy?"
I'm unable to breathe through the nose. I'm unable to sleep. Children will wake up with difficulty in performing in school because of that. So we have to be aware of that, of the impact of this simple runny nose. And if you look here at this slide, it will show you really the impact, and dependent on the severity, even on school performance of children. So before we even say that a child has maybe attention deficit disorder, shall we ask ourselves, does he have runny nose? Does he have a difficulty in breathing at night? Does he sleep well or not?
An air of anticipation and excitement hangs over the Anglican Church as it prepares to elect a new bishop. The process, similar in some ways to a national election, will play out over the next few months. Kent Jerson takes a look at what is expected to unfold.
In the coming months, a very important election will be held here in Barbados. And no, I'm not talking about the national election to determine who will form the next government. The election I'm speaking of is for the Bishop of the Anglican Church, one of the most influential institutions in the country. To find out about the process, CBC visited the Diocesan Secretariat next to the Christchurch Parish Church. There we met with newly appointed Diocesan Administrator Canon Wayne Isaacs, who says there is a buzz in the Anglican Church and even beyond.
There's some excitement and anxiety of who will become the chief pastor and shepherd of the diocese.
But what exactly is involved? We wanted the details. Canon Isaacs, talk us through the election process.
First, the senior bishop has to send a letter to the diocese giving us the date when the vacancy will begin. When that letter has been received, then the Synod Council will meet and set a date for the elective synod to meet to elect the new bishop.
The bishop must then be elected within 6 months. One of the ways this differs from a national general election is that the people seeking the office are not officially identified until the 11th hour.
There are no candidates for the election until the day itself. So we will not know who the persons are until we meet on the morning of the elective synod when persons are nominated. Only at that time will we know who are the persons that will offer themselves for the office of bishop.
Yet there is still some level of campaigning that happens.
It goes on, but officially there's no campaign as such. We pray and we hope that the Holy Spirit will guide us, but it's not a campaign in the sense of a political campaign, but I guess people will seek support or whatnot for the persons that they would like to be bishop.
And who is considered for the job?
Persons to be nominated must be 30 years and over, and must be a priest of the Anglican Church. That is all that is required. Canon
Isaacs adds that he believes the voters also consider the ability and character of the nominees. The day of election begins with a service.
We come into elective synod. Nominations are made, and then we have what is called a debate, whereby you speak on behalf of the candidate that you are supporting. Then after the debate, then we have the ballot. Now, to be elected, you have to receive 2/3 votes in the House of Clergy and the House of Laity, in both houses at the same time.
Voting continues until that happens, or the matter is referred to a select committee. When a candidate is finally elected, he still has to be confirmed by the bishops of the province. After that comes consecration and enthronement of the new bishop. All this is happening because former Archbishop of the West Indies and Bishop of Barbados, Dr. John Holder, officially retired at the end of February. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
Thanks, Kent. Well, in a matter of days, South Coast streets could be free from sewage. That is, if the Barbados Water Authority's dye testing on a deep injection well for the diversion of South Coast sewage comes back positive. Now, the dye testing will determine if the well field located near the South Coast sewage plant will present any health or environmental challenges. So joining us live now to give us an update on this development and other issues is Director of Engineering at the BWA, Charles Leslie. Mr. Leslie, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa.
Now, we have lots of things going on with the South Coast. So the first thing is the injection wells. Tell us what is the latest with that part of the project.
Okay, our first injection well was completed on Friday, and we started dye testing on that on Saturday. The testing would have been, the last sample was taken today, and that was sent off to a lab in the US. And we're expecting that analysis to be taking place, and then we're expecting the results back by Friday. Once we get a positive response regarding those wells, we will sit with the agencies, Environmental Protection Department, the Ministry of Health, and those agencies, and a determination will be made as to when we will then start the injection of the waste into those wells. And once that starts, we can then look at starting repairs on the street.
Right. And so that means that you shouldn't see the bubbling up of sewage on the streets anymore?
Well, those wells will be able to relieve that. They will be able to relieve any excess that we have in the system. The system is fully charged now, and those wells will allow us to release any of that excess waste that will be bubbling on the streets. They will be used during the course of the repairs on the street, and going forward for any emergency that we may have at the plant. Instead of dumping it in the channel to go out to sea as was originally designed, we will now have an alternative to take it off the streets and to inject it into the ground.
So help me understand, there are 4 wells that are supposed to be sunk. They're all going to be sunk in the same area?
Yes, these wells are going to be sunk in the same general area. They are like in a line. And just off the head of the plant, we'll be diverting the waste. Rather than it go on the first main, it will be going on a manifold that goes to these 3 or 4 wells. And these wells will then allow us to be able to take that waste off the street.
So are all of the wells completed, or only the one?
We have completed the first one, and we're on to the second one now.
Right.
I believe by the end of tomorrow, we would have at least gone through the first phase. Normally these wells take at least 10 days to do, but we understand the lithology and the geology, so we now have an understanding on how we can go a bit faster with these wells. You start normally with a 6-inch borehole, you increase that to a 14-inch, you then increase that again to a 20-inch, and the final size is 24-inch before you can install your casing. You have to grout the casing after that, and then you have to do what they call developing the well, which is like the removal of any fine materials that would have gotten into the well while you're doing your drilling. So
one thing I think Barbadians would want to know is, how do you give the assurance that none of the parts, you just talked about casing and grouting and those types of things, because one of the things that had happened before is that you get equipment, or you get pieces of equipment, but once you install them where you need them to be, then they broke.
Okay, well, these wells, we have some measure of redundancy in these wells. We know that systems fail from time to time, but with these wells, we have redundancy, and we have made a provision where we could actually stop 1 or 2 of the wells do maintenance on the well while we're still operating. So we have some redundancy in the system.
So recently then we heard that many parts of the sewage system need replacing. Can you explain what that is?
Well, our plant is, well, it needs some maintenance. So we are going through a process where we are actually doing a comprehensive assessment of the system. Once we do the initial repairs, like for instance on our force main and our gravity line, we are going to do a comprehensive assessment of the entire system, because we believe that, you know, we've been hearing additional noises when we do our inspections. But once you do a major repair, obviously that area is strengthened and it's going to put pressure on the weaker areas. So we'll go ahead and do a comprehensive assessment of that. At our major plant, we are going to be actually doing assessment of the areas where we would need to do repairs on that as well, and presenting a comprehensive package where we could do a complete rehabilitation of that entire system.
Any idea of when that part of it will begin, or does that depend on the success of the wells?
We have the whole thing phased. So the first phase of this whole project is the diversion. Once we can successfully achieve the diversion, we'll go in and do the repairs. Once we have done that repairs, that would allow us then to get the system back to some sort of normalcy where we can reduce the load on the system right now, get the flows down in the system. Once we get those flows down, the system would have some capacity to store waste while we do other repairs and investigations and that kind of stuff on the system.
There was some sewage and some concerns about sewage in the streets in the area of Cape Shepherd and Trimart. What's the situation with that? Well,
okay, we've been going through the system recently and doing some additional cleaning, degreasing, and so forth. The public would have recognized that in the lanterns area, in those areas, they are dry now, and that's because we had done some additional work in that area. Once we've completed the work, we have gone in and sealed those manholes. In front of Trimart, we had a manhole that was leaking profusely, and we did some repairs on that last week. Masonry repairs, we took out the manhole covers and so forth and replaced them. But we're going to be cleaning that entire system systematically. And once we clean that and we continue to have success with our pumping, we can pump at the maximum capacity. We believe that we will gradually lower the levels down, and once we can do the diversion, that will definitely reduce the levels and keep the streets dry.
There were questions raised about the integrity of the road in front of KFC in the Lanterns area. Is that something the BWA has been looking into to ensure, you know, that it is safe?
Well, we've been speaking with our sister ministry, the Ministry of Public Works, and they have been doing their assessments, but we don't think it is anything for the public to be fearful of. We don't think there's anything to be fearful of.
Okay. And then the St. Lawrence School was closed as a result of some sewage spillage in that area. What's the latest with that?
Well, that area has been cleaned up. What was happening there's a manhole between the back of the St. Lawrence School and the Graham Hall Swamp. And because we have the system so charged now, and we had failure at the plant in terms of our effluent pumps, what happened is that manhole started to spill over and it went onto the field at the back of the school. We have now created a berm between the school and that manhole.
A berm, you
said?
A
berm, an earth berm. So what it will allow, it would prevent if there is any spillage in the future from that going onto the school's property. It will contain to the manhole itself.
What's a berm? Sorry.
A berm is just a mound that is created from the earth. So we use excavators and created a mound. And that mound, once the water comes out, it would prevent it from traveling in a particular direction. We have it controlled just to the area of the manhole.
Okay, so then just to wrap up, the focus is on the wells right now.
Yes.
And then once the test results come back, which we had said before was in 24 to 48 hours?
Yes, we are expecting that to be back by Friday. And once that comes back, then we'll sit with our agencies, our regulatory agencies, and look at the next step of the whole process.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles Leslie, the Director of Engineering at the Barbados Water Authority. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll take a break here, but there's more news coming up, so stay tuned. Recent research indicates that political interference is having a severe impact on the growth and development of young public sector employees. But that's just one of the worrying revelations of the study of succession in local businesses. Kareem Smith has those details.
The biggest obstacle reportedly preventing public sector managers from identifying and developing new leaders to replace them when they leave, retire, or die is political interference. That's just one of the findings from a survey conducted among 60 public sector managers by lecturer in management at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, Dr. Dwayne Devonish. On CBC's Morning Barbados, he revealed the need for strong leadership to combat political interference in the workplace.
There's some managers who would say, I'm hands off. You know, I found that there's a candidate who is competent, who's prepared to take on this role, but perhaps the PS or perhaps someone else, the powers that exist may have a different plan. And I think those are the things that would thwart or contaminate a succession plan.
The private sector is not exempt. According to the survey, young people in that section of the labor force are not given the keys to take on new roles in the workplace. Dr. Devonish says it's because private sector managers are struggling to keep staff motivated.
So what essentially happens is that there's this high turnover of employees who perhaps become disengaged from the workplace because they're not motivated, and then they go to other organizations. So by the time a particular post or set of roles are vacated, right? There's not a sufficient pool of candidates to tap into to fill those particular positions for private sector.
Simple strategies like employee reward systems were cited as important in keeping good workers engaged.
We are finite beings. At the end of the day, we live in a role. I call it living, not operating, because sometimes we feel that the role is us. And then when we die, we take all that information and we fail to pass it on.
Yes.
It's also about teaching older persons about the need to share information, the need to understand that a role will survive you even after you pass.
For many local businesses, succession planning is not a priority, and many owners and managers do not have a solid understanding of what it entails. Dr. Devonish, however, says the onus is also on younger employees to prepare themselves to move up the employment ladder. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Thanks, Kareem. Well, the 5-member Harris household of Green Hill St. Michael was all smiles today as the Community Services for the Disadvantaged organization presented the family with cardboard and paint for renovations to their house, which was damaged by fire 2 years ago. The organization will also provide the labor for the renovations as well as to debush the yard. District Governor, founding regional principal of Community Services for the Disadvantaged, Desmond Hoyt, says the donation is part of their humanitarian poverty eradication program.
We have done work in many parishes already, but this is more new and innovative now, and we help renovating houses, doing the bushing programs, Meals on Wheels. We're having sports development for the youth, a lot of different events that we decided to take to our new innovative throughout the community and how we eradicate some of the poverty throughout the constituencies.
And Rashida Holder relived how easily the fire broke out while expressing her gratitude for the contribution.
We came home late at night time, the current was off. We was waiting for the house to finish rewiring things, so we was using a lamp. So when we came home, he was refilling the lamp. So while he was refilling the lamp blew. So he just let go on it, drop on the ground, so that's how the fire started.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
The Guyana government says it is moving to provide a stable and affordable source of energy to the population within an economically, environmentally and socially stable, sustainable framework. Public Infrastructure Minister David Patterson said while Guyana is presently highly dependent on petroleum fuel imports to meet its energy demand, the government remains cognizant that the country possesses a wealth of natural resources that can provide the country with significant options for the development of renewable energy sources. He said through frameworks such as the National Energy Policy, the Green State Development Strategy, and supporting fiscal incentives, the government will be able to scale up its natural resources to meet the country's energy demands and attain the goal under the Paris Agreement. And still in Guyana, Public Security Minister Kemraj Ramjatan is telling members of the public if they know their relatives are involved in crime, it is their duty to report them, especially now since they can be rewarded for their information. We have more in this report.
Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan said that increasing statistics of robberies has become troubling, especially since the force is finding it hard to capture some criminal elements. Ramjatan told a press conference on Monday that following a brazen attempted robbery last year at Republic Bank, Water Street, other banking institutions have also been taking steps to protect its customers. Bank employees are often blamed for leaking information. Their phones are now seized upon entry to work. Ramjatan explained that persons walking with large sums of cash to banks are to be blamed at times.
We are coming around also believing that some of these people who go to withdraw monies sometimes tell family members, tell villagers, me go bank, me go collect money, me go draw down to pay you off and so on. And then the information probably seeps through that way. But we are also asking banks to put up these CCTV cameras in and around their banks. But we now understand that these thieves are so smart, they do not go next to the cameras or where the camera's coverage area is.
Minister Ramjatan noted that since Acting Commissioner of Police David Ramnarine took up the post of top cop recently, he ordered that the police undertake sting operations. He said in order for sting operations to be done, information is vital.
And that is why we have set up this informants system whereby we can get all police force got it. You got to pay them some money, and then they tell you, well, I know that this one is involved, and so on. It operates like that, and we have now structured a program to pay informants cash for the information that we will get, because some people seem not to know their civic duty of telling the police, and so on. And some of them are very scared to tell the police too. We had that same kind of arrangement with the carjackers.
The minister noted that relatives and friends of those associated with criminal activities also have a civic duty to report these crimes to the authorities.
Look, let me say this very clearly. Parents and brothers and sisters of these thief men know who they are. Just like that thief man that gone behind back and thief goat and sheep and all of them and were shot. The family members knew who they were, but they didn't want to talk until they got killed. And so it's a small society, we ain't got 1 million people. And everybody know everybody business. They know how he could buy fancy shirt and all kind of thing and gold band and this and that. He ain't walking no way. But they don't want to come forward and tell the police, but I suspect this fella.
The Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, LATT, has signaled its intention to appeal a ruling by High Court Judge Nadia Kangaloo that it does not have the power to investigate allegations of misconduct against Chief Justice Ivor Archie. The judge, in handing down her 19-page ruling yesterday, said the investigation is illegal, unreasonable, irrational, and contrary to the Legal Profession Act, which established the LATT. The judge also ruled that the Law Association must pay costs to the Chief Justice in this matter. But in an email to members late Tuesday night, the LATT said the council met and decided to immediately lodge an appeal and an application for an urgent hearing. The LATT said it had been advised to postpone its special general meeting, carded for next Thursday, in which a report on the investigation conducted by a subcommittee of council was expected to be presented for consideration. Over to Antigua and Barbuda now. The High Court has adjourned until tomorrow the hearing of an application by the leader of the Barbuda People's Movement, Trevor Walker. He is challenging the decision of the Antigua and Barbuda Electoral Commission to have voters of Barbuda cast their ballots in the March 21st general election on the island of Antigua. Barbuda was severely affected when Hurricane Irma passed through the Lesser Antilles last September, forcing the Gaston Brown government to order a total evacuation of the island. Well, since then, the measure has been relaxed and many of the 1,600 Barbudans have returned to their homes. Attorney Charlesworth Tabor said after more than an hour of arguments on Tuesday, Justice Claire Henry adjourned the matter until Thursday. We'll give you a glimpse into the world of sports just ahead, but first, a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Anti-doping rule violations number 6. Doping is defined as the possession of a banned substance and/or method. This fact is brought to you compliments the National Anti-Doping Commission.